What's up, everyone? Jason Brown here, the king of programming. We're talking about what is the right training split for you, and we're going to start right now. All right, training split. This is something I talk about all the time with the coaches that I mentor. And one of the things I tend to see with a lot of coaches these days is they give people the training they're doing. The training you're doing might not be the training the client needs to do. And even when people are choosing new training programs, they make the mistake of choosing something that had worked for them years ago. The thing that worked for you years ago might be a complete mismatch for you present day. So there are three styles of training I'm going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of these styles of training and hopefully allow you to make some better choices moving forward so you can get better results from your training. That's what it's all about. So first and foremost, we're going to talk about full body training. I talk about full body training all the time. And I think there's a lot of confusion and a lot of misnomers with full body training in terms of what it can do. Sometimes people will chime in. I see comments of like, oh, that's only for beginners, or you can't gain muscle with that. Well, that's actually not true. And there's a lot of things to consider in terms of whether it's for beginners or it's for advanced and whether or not you can gain muscle. Now, a shitty program, I don't care who you are or what you're doing, it's not gonna help you. And of course, there are people that are genetic outliers that get results from doing anything. But we're talking about just kind of regular people here that have responsibilities. There are a lot of things that we need to put into a good program to allow them to get better. And of course, we've got the other 23 hours a day outside of the gym that need to be taken into consideration. But first and foremost, full body training. I find it to be a great fit for beginners. Why? Because beginners need to learn how to do the foundational movement patterns. Your squat, single leg, your hinge, your push, your pull. Even loaded carries have a tremendous benefit in terms of both conditioning and core control. So a lot of things that we can do with the beginner in terms of giving them a little more frequency throughout the week. On the other end of the spectrum, the advanced individual. Why would they be a good fit for full body training? The advanced individual has got time in the trenches. They've strained under weight. They've learned how to move. At least that's would be my contention, what I would hope. If you're advanced, I would hope that you know how to do all the foundational movement patterns and execute them with great technique. That allows you the ability to know how to push, number one. Two, to know what reps in reserve means. If I say 1 rep, 2 reps in reserve, you know what that feels like. Whereas someone that has less experience might do something that they think is hard, but it's really more like 6 or 7 reps in the tank. Two very different things. So your ability to know yourself and know how to push is something that is very important, especially for those that are more advanced in utilizing a full body split. Now, we get into more of the neuromuscular component. We just think about some basic physiology here. People that know how to push have more developed nervous systems. They know how to recruit high threshold motor units. They know how to go deep with big exercises like your squat, your press, your hinge pattern. So that allows them to get a lot more from less. I tend to see people that have been training for longer stretches of time, and this is a big subset of the people that use my training are very similar to me, have been training 15 plus years, are very serious, like me, were former athletes. Pushing is not a problem for them. Movement quality doesn't tend to be a problem for them. Being able to have training that aligns with their life outside of the gym and allows them to improve their quality of life, that is another thing. And we can do that very well for those folks with full body training. So for those people, more advanced, can get more from less, can do more quality of movement and get a lot more from it, be less sore. Those are all things that allow them to get a lot from full body split. Even if your goal is to gain lean tissue, you can do it. I am doing it. I'm 41 years old. I've been using full body training exclusively for the last 2 years. I'm getting the best gains of my life. And guess what? I feel better. I don't have the same bumps and bruises, little shoulder nicks that I've had in the past, lower back issue I had in the past. All that stuff has gone away. I feel great and moving better. All that stuff goes without saying. But of course, looking good, having improvements as far as body composition. If you're training hard, you want to see that work pay off. You want to see the fruits of your labor. And that is, of course, can manifest in a variety of ways. So full body training I find to be a great fit for, if I was to run into 10 people on the street, 8 of them will be a good fit for full body training. That is probably the first place I'd start for any of you, is to consider full body training. And luckily, I have the best solution for you, which is Evolve Full Body Athlete. You can grab a free 7-day trial. The link is in the comments. So check that out for free. But without spending more time on this, I wanted you guys to think about this from the perspective of someone that needs to learn how to move, and that's someone that already knows how to move and has been doing it a long time and knows how to push. Those two people. Now, all right, guys, if you made it this far in the video, I really appreciate having you here and subscribing to my content. If any of this information resonates with you and you want more free value, I would love the chance to support you on my weekly newsletter. We put out a ton of free content. Myself and my wife, Danny, put this out. We write it every single week to curate a ton of great stuff for you guys. The link is in the show notes, and we'll see you on the inside. Where does the person in the middle fit? Now, the person in the middle, probably a better fit for using something like a lower upper split, where we do 2 lower days, 2 upper days. Why? Well, these people are still learning. They are still of the mindset that they have to do more to get more. So oftentimes we think about this like trying to change someone's political stance. You're probably not gonna do it. With training, if you're newer to training, let's say you're 5 years in and you're ready to push and you've got good foundational movement patterns, and I tell you, hey, you should train less. You're probably gonna be like, F you, I'm not doing that. And maybe you're more amenable to doing that, but I think most people are just of the mindset that they still have to do more. And trying to break that pattern sooner sometimes doesn't make sense. So for those people, I would recommend a lower upper split. Again, 2 lower days, 2 heavy days, so 4 days of resistance training. And of course, if you can get in some aerobic conditioning, it's gonna help the equation. But again, the psychological profile is something we need to consider here with recommending the training split. So like I said, if you're a beginner, full body. If you're super advanced, full body. If you're in the middle of the road, probably doing more resistance training is gonna give you more bang for the buck as far as just mentally. Now, could you get great gains from full body training? Absolutely, but we're not considering that. We're considering just the psychological profile here of the individual and whether or not they're gonna do that. And if I push someone too soon into a style of training they're not ready for, usually they push back and they say, I hate that, I'm not ready for it. And I will tell you guys, I've experimented with full body training throughout my entire career, 20 years as a coach, and I didn't commit to it full time until 2 years ago. So there were various times in my life where I liked doing it, but I was like, I don't know if I wanna do this long term, mainly because I didn't feel like I would get as much from it. So if that's the case for you, I would go with a lower upper split, and it is a phenomenal way to train where, again, we're doing a full lower body session. So that can consist of squatting patterns, hinging patterns, single leg with both hinging and squatting. And of course, you can add in some other elements too, like band work. But overall, that's kind of how we would look at that. And if you think about the upper body training, you could do something like push-pull supersets or 1 movement at a time where you're focusing more on just building to some heavier loads with things like your bilateral movement. So a lot of different ways to skin the cat with that. Now, the third way that I would recommend you guys train specifically for that person I just mentioned who is in the middle of the road as far as experience, probably still thinks that they need to push really hard and to do more resistance training to get more, I would ease them into a hybrid split. So the hybrid split is something that encompasses a lower body session, an upper body session, and then a full body session. So it's not full body completely, it's still giving you the pump and feel, which I should have mentioned before. That individual that's in the middle of the road, they like to feel the pump. They like to feel like they're doing a lot more. You will feel like you're doing more with a lower upper split. Full body, you don't feel quite the same way. So there is, again, we need to take into consideration the mindset here. So the person that is in the middle of the road, and maybe they're getting towards the end, they're getting towards that 10-year mark, they're starting to get some bumps and bruises, we can start easing them into it slowly where we still do a lower session, we still do an upper session, and then we culminate the week, that third resistance training session with a full body session. That's a good way to ease them into it where it's not too much at once. Now, a lot here to unpack is, of course, there are other splits, other directions you go, but for sake of time, I'm covering these 3. These are the 3 splits that I have found to be the kind of catch-all for the people I've come into contact with over the last 2 decades. There is a lot of ways that you could potentially make these your own, but what I would say is that if your goals revolve around strength training, then there are different ways that you could do things. You could focus on more power development. You could focus on more singular exercise selection. If you are looking more towards hypertrophy, then there are strategies you can use for that. But at the end of the day, the training has to support your lifestyle. It has to support what you can commit to long-term. So if you have only 4 days to train and you're doing a body part split, it's probably not the right fit for you. It's time to go back to the drawing board and think about, hey, I'm finding myself missing sessions on a week-to-week basis. Then that's gonna take away from where you wanna go, and you can likely get a lot more from doing less. So just to recap, we've talked about full body split being a great split for someone that has been in the trenches a long time, more advanced, knows how to push, likely has some aches and pains. We also have the beginner that does need some more frequency and need to learn how to move more, just more motor control perspective. So great for those two individuals. Split 2, we talked about a lower upper split where we have 2 lower sessions per week, 2 upper sessions per week. This is for someone that's good in the middle of the road, that still wants to feel like they're doing more, still is very much hooked on getting a good pump, and maybe not ready to transition into full body. And then the third split would be a hybrid between those 2 splits that I mentioned, a lower upper with a culmination at the end of the week of a full body day. So that's kind of a nice way to ease those people into it. Last thing I will say is that training body part splits or training lower upper split is a great option to go, but more resistance training tends to flare up issues with people. Now, it's not my opinion, this is just what I've seen in my experience, including myself, is that albeit most people want to do more resistance training and not as much cardio, we tend to see issues arise long-term where we're just beating ourselves up with more resistance training. Now, strength training we know as a whole is incredibly beneficial. Most people do need to get stronger, but you can get stronger without having to do 4 or 5 sessions a week. You can get stronger in 3 sessions per week. So these are things that I want you to think about. I also want you to think about when you do less strength sessions, that allows you the ability to do more aerobic training, which we know is the most important thing for our heart health, longevity, how long we live, all those great things that we need to be mindful of. So these are things to consider. And when you are doing a body part split or you're training with resistance training 5-6 days a week, there's not a whole lot of room for that. So remember, it's not about being able to do more, it's being able to do it better and being able to break those sessions up and have a little bit more diversity where we can focus on things like the aerobic system and not have to have just one quality of fitness that we're focusing on all the time. So with that said, that's it for today, guys. I appreciate you watching this, making it to the end of this video. If you have ideas or something you'd like to see in future videos, drop it in the comments for me. And remember, results are king.
Best program available on the internet today.
I think it's very difficult to find a trainer like Jason that...
Since joining Everyday Heroes, I feel like I've stopped working out and actually started training.